The galaxy was vast, filled with civilizations far older and more advanced than anything Earth had ever known. A council of the most powerful species from across the stars gathered in a massive chamber on a station orbiting a distant sun. Each member of the council was a being of unimaginable power and intellect. Their technologies spanned the reaches of space, and their empires had flourished for millennia. They had met countless times before to discuss matters of importance. But this time there was a new topic to consider: the fate of Earth. The humans of Earth had long been considered a primitive species. Their planet was young, and their technology crude. They had barely begun to venture beyond their own atmosphere, and yet they had survived against the odds time and time again. They had fought through wars, diseases, and even environmental collapse. And still they endured. They were not the most powerful species in the galaxy, but they had something that the others lacked: a certain spark, a resilience that could not be ignored. The council debated for days on what to do with Earth. The decision seemed simple enough: their technology far outstripped anything humanity had achieved, and their numbers were vast. They could easily conquer the planet, strip its resources, and enslave its people. But something about humanity intrigued them. Despite their primitive tools, humans had a fire in them, a will to survive, and to fight for their place in the universe. The debate was heated. Some members of the council advocated for immediate invasion. They argued that the humans were a threat simply by existing. Their potential for growth was unknown, and therefore dangerous. The galaxy could not afford to let such a species rise unchecked. Others were more hesitant. They saw the value in studying humanity, observing their development, and perhaps making use of their creativity and adaptability. But in the end, the vote was unanimous: Earth would be conquered. As the decision was made, the council members exchanged nods of approval. They had agreed on a course of action, and it was final. The resources of Earth would be seized, and the humans would be brought under the control of the galaxy's mightiest empires. The fleet would arrive within weeks. Their ships would blot out the sky, their soldiers would march across the land, and humanity would fall in line. Back on Earth, life went on, unaware of the fate that was about to befall them. Humans woke up to the same routine they had always known. They went to work, they went to school. They lived their lives. They had no idea that in the halls of a distant station far beyond their reach, the fate of their planet had already been sealed, and soon they would face an enemy unlike anything they had ever encountered. But even as the invaders prepared their ships and weapons, there was something they had not accounted for, something they had missed in their calculations, and that was the spirit of humanity, the drive to overcome insurmountable odds, the willingness to fight not just for survival, but for the future of their species. Earth may have been an easy target on paper, but the council was about to learn a hard lesson about the strength of a species fighting for its very existence. The first wave of the invasion arrived faster than anyone expected. Massive ships descended from the sky, their hulls gleaming with strange technology. The humans watched in awe and terror as the sky darkened, and the ships began to land. The alien forces had come in full force. Their soldiers emerged in advanced battle armor, their weapons more powerful than anything humanity had ever seen. It was clear they intended to conquer Earth swiftly and without mercy. The initial landings were chaotic. Entire cities were obliterated in the first wave of attacks. The ground shook as the alien forces unleashed their full-powered. Humanity was caught off guard for the first time since the council had voted to invade. The sheer overwhelming power of the enemy was undeniable. They came with precision and speed, taking over strategic locations around the world. In a matter of hours, it seemed like the fate of Earth was sealed. Yet the invaders underestimated one thing: they underestimated the will of humanity. Despite the devastation, the people of Earth did not cower. They did not fall into despair. Instead, they began to fight back with whatever they had at their disposal. Humanity's response was not immediate, but it was relentless. Small pockets of resistance began to form across the globe. Using old military tactics and guerrilla warfare, the humans struck at the alien forces where they least expected. In the cities that had been hit the hardest, resistance fighters came together from all walks of life: soldiers, firefighters, engineers, even civilians who had never held a weapon before joined the fight. They scavenged alien technology from destroyed ships and began to adapt it for their own use. They built traps, rigged explosives, and improvised weapons, turning the invaders' advanced technology against them. Humanity's creativity and adaptability began to shine through. The aliens were initially baffled by the human response. They had assumed that Earth would fall easily, that the humans would panic and surrender, but instead, the humans had formed an organized resistance that quickly became more than a nuisance. The invaders soon realized that this was not just a fight for survival. This was a fight against a species that refused to be crushed. In the midst of all the chaos, something unexpected happened. A small group of human pilots managed to break through the alien defense lines, using their own fighter jets to launch a daring attack against one of the larger motherships. The attack was reckless, but it worked. They destroyed the ship, sending shockwaves throughout the alien fleet. The humans had just scored their first major victory, and the aliens were starting to take notice. The Council had assumed that this would be a short and easy campaign, but the humans were proving to be far more resourceful than they had ever anticipated. With every battle, humanity learned more about their enemy and adapted faster than the invaders could keep up. They had underestimated the resilience of Earth, and now the tide was beginning to shift. As the humans gained ground and the aliens struggled to maintain control, the question that had once seemed simple was no longer so clear. Could the invaders truly conquer a species like humanity, who had so much to fight for? Or had they made a grave mistake in underestimating their enemy? The alien forces were beginning to crack under the pressure. The humans were relentless. They adapted quickly, learning from each encounter and turning every alien advantage into a weakness. It wasn't just about brute strength anymore. Humanity had learned to fight smart, using the terrain to their advantage, setting traps, and using guerrilla tactics to confuse and frustrate the invaders. The resistance was growing more organized and more skilled by the day. Humans who had never considered themselves soldiers were now expert tacticians and engineers. Their ingenuity was becoming their greatest weapon. They had taken down another alien ship, a massive warship that had once seemed indestructible. The invaders were left reeling as their technology failed to provide the edge they had relied on. In one region of the world, a group of humans captured a high-ranking alien officer during an ambush. This officer had information that could turn the tide of the war. They were able to extract key details from him about the invaders' plans and their weaknesses. It was a turning point. The humans now knew how to target the alien supply lines and disrupt their advanced technology. With this new knowledge, they began to launch more coordinated attacks against the invaders' critical infrastructure. As the resistance grew bolder, the alien commanders began to panic. They could no longer predict human actions. Each battle left them more and more confused and disoriented. The Earthlings were showing them a side of warfare they had never encountered before. They had underestimated the humans in every way possible. The aliens attempted to launch counteroffensive strategies, but they were too slow and too predictable. Their fleets were scattered and vulnerable. Their forces were stretched thin across a planet they had never fully understood, and they were no longer fighting against a primitive species, but against a force that was learning and adapting faster than they ever could have imagined. Back on Earth, the news of human victories began to spread like wildfire. People who had once lived in fear were now emboldened. Every victory gave them more confidence. They began to believe they could win this war. They began to believe they could drive the invaders from their planet and take control of their own destiny. No longer were they a helpless species waiting to be conquered. Now, they were warriors fighting for their homes and their future. The alien forces did not know how to deal with this new humanity. They had assumed the planet's people would break under pressure, but instead they had risen above it. They had become a united front, fighting as one with a single purpose. The invaders were beginning to question their initial decision to conquer Earth. They had underestimated the strength of a species that had been fighting for survival for so long. Humanity had proven something that no one in the galaxy had expected. They had proven that they could not only survive, but thrive under pressure, and now the alien forces were starting to realize they had made a fatal mistake. They had underestimated the power of the human spirit, and the consequences of that mistake were beginning to unfold in ways they could never have foreseen. As the alien forces reeled from the unexpected resistance, they began to lose their grip on Earth. It wasn't just the military defeats that began to worry them, it was the fact that humanity was learning faster than they ever could have imagined. Each new battle felt like a lesson for the humans, and a mistake for the invaders. They had thought they were invincible, but now they were unsure of their own strength. Humans had taken full advantage of their resources. Every piece of alien technology they captured was quickly reverse-engineered and put to use in the fight. Their once primitive weapons were now combined with the most advanced alien tech, making them a formidable force in the field. The aliens who had once walked across the planet with impunity were now constantly on the defensive. One by one, the alien commanders fell. Their fleets scattered across the planet, unable to maintain a unified front. The humans had found their rhythm. Their attacks became more precise, their strategies more effective. It was no longer just a rebellion. It was a full-scale war, with the humans emerging as the dominant force. The invaders had underestimated one thing: they could not account for human adaptability and their ability to turn failure into strength. In one major battle, the humans launched a devastating offensive against a massive alien stronghold in the mountains, using a combination of scavenged alien weapons and human ingenuity. They set up a trap that ensnared the invaders' supply lines. For days, the alien forces were caught in a defensive position, unable to move or call for reinforcements. It was a turning point in the war. The humans had dealt a crippling blow to the invaders' logistics, and their morale plummeted. The alien fleets began to retreat one by one, each defeated force having lost its momentum. The warlords and commanders who had been so sure of their victory were now scrambling to find a way out. Their forces were fragmented, and their supply chains were broken. The once proud invaders who had thought they would take over Earth were now running from it, unable to face the humans head-on. The news of humanity's victory spread across the planet. As their confidence grew, so did their power. The resistance movements merged into a unified army with a single purpose: to push the invaders off their world and reclaim what was theirs. The planet was no longer a helpless target. It had become a symbol of defiance, a beacon of hope for other species who might one day face the same kind of invasion. The humans were no longer fighting just for survival. They were fighting to protect their home, to secure a future for themselves and their children, and to prove to the galaxy that they were not weak. They were not easy prey. They were a force to be reckoned with. The invaders had expected a quick and painless conquest, but instead they had found themselves trapped in a war they could not win. The alien leaders were now fully aware of the gravity of their mistake. They had underestimated Earth and its people, and now they were paying the price. With every battle they lost, they could feel the grip of the galaxy's most powerful species slipping away from them. Earth was no longer just a target. It had become their greatest challenge, and the stakes had never been higher. As the war continued, the alien forces began to panic. They had never anticipated this level of resistance from Earth. They had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt and fight back. The once mighty fleets that had arrived so confidently were now broken and scattered across the planet. The invaders were in disarray. Their leadership was uncertain, and their supply lines were stretched thin. They were losing ground at an alarming rate. The first sign of true desperation came when the alien commanders began to request reinforcements from their homeworlds. They called for more ships, more soldiers, more weapons to turn the tide of battle. But it was too late. The human forces had already found a way to turn the invaders' own technology against them. Every new weapon the aliens introduced was quickly studied and adapted by the humans to use for their own advantage. Earth's military forces grew stronger with each passing day. The humans had learned to fight as one. They were no longer divided by their differences. Instead, they united under a common cause and began to push the invaders back with incredible efficiency. The once unthinkable victories now seemed possible, and every alien defeat was a further blow to the invaders' morale. The Alien Council watched in horror as their carefully laid plans unraveled. They had once believed that humanity was an easy target, but now they were realizing that they had been wrong. Humanity was no longer just a threat to their invasion. It was a challenge to their entire place in the galaxy. The invaders were no longer certain that they could control Earth or even win the war they had started. In their desperation, the Council began to fracture. Different factions started to form. Some were still determined to push forward with the invasion, while others argued that they should cut their losses and leave Earth before it was too late. But the infighting only made the situation worse. The longer they delayed, the more ground the humans gained, and the more powerful their resistance became on Earth. The situation was different. The people were no longer just fighting to survive. They were fighting for their future. They had united in a way that no one had ever expected, and their victories only fueled their determination. The human spirit was unbreakable, and the invaders were beginning to understand that their strength alone could not crush a species with such resilience. The tide of the war had shifted irreparably. Humanity had gone from being the underdog to the ones who held the upper hand. The alien invaders who had once looked down on Earth as a weak and insignificant world now saw their forces crumbling in the face of human ingenuity and determination. With every victory, humanity gained confidence, and with every defeat, the alien fleets lost hope. The aliens began to realize that their initial confidence had been their greatest mistake. They had misjudged the humans. They had underestimated the power of their will to survive and thrive. Now, they were faced with the consequences of their actions, and the realization that they had created a force they could not easily defeat. Humanity had become the very thing they had feared most, an unstoppable force with the strength to change the galaxy. The aliens had underestimated humanity from the beginning, and now they were facing the consequences. Their forces were in retreat, scattered across the planet, and their commanders were desperate. Their once mighty fleets were no longer the dominant force in the galaxy. They had thought Earth would fall easily, but the humans had surprised them at every turn. With their resilience and creativity, the invaders were losing ground faster than they could replace it. Amid the chaos and confusion, a new faction emerged: the Xurians, a mysterious and ancient alien race who had been observing humanity for centuries. In secret, they had remained hidden from the Council and the invaders, but now they stepped forward with a stunning revelation. They had not come to Earth to conquer, but to guide. They had been watching humanity's development from afar, and had known all along that Earth had a special potential that no one else in the galaxy had seen. The Xurians explained that they had intentionally kept humanity in the dark about their true potential. Their plan was never to let the humans be conquered, but to let them discover their own strength. The Xurians had manipulated the galaxy's perception of Earth to ensure that humanity would have to fight for its survival, but in doing so they had also ensured that humanity would rise to a level that no one had expected. The Council was furious. They had been played. The Xurians had allowed the invaders to attack Earth because they knew the humans would never go down without a fight. Humanity's strength was not just in its ability to survive, it was in its ability to learn and adapt to anything thrown at them. The Xurians had known this all along, and now the humans were proving it. The revelation sent shockwaves through the galaxy. The Council members who had once been so confident in their power now found themselves questioning everything they had believed about Earth. They had seen the humans as a primitive species ripe for the taking, but now they realized they had been blind to the true nature of humanity. The Xurians told the Council that they had already made a grave mistake by underestimating Earth. They had assumed that the humans were weak and incapable of defending themselves. But now they were facing the reality that Earth was no longer a target, it was a threat. The humans had become too powerful, and the Council could not risk further confrontation. With this knowledge, the once confident invaders were forced into a corner. They had no way out. Their fleets were in tatters, their soldiers were demoralized, and now they knew they had made a terrible mistake. They had thought they could conquer Earth, but instead they had awakened a force that would change the galaxy forever. The alien leaders now faced an impossible decision. Should they continue the fight knowing they would lose, or should they admit their failure and beg for mercy? The Council's unity was starting to crumble. Factions within the alien races began to argue. Some wanted to continue the war to the bitter end, while others realized they had no choice but to surrender to humanity and seek peace before it was too late. The Council was on the brink of collapse as the invaders began to realize the scale of their failure. The once unified alliance of powerful species that had declared war on Earth was now fractured. Some factions wanted to keep fighting, hoping for a miracle, while others saw the writing on the wall and sought to negotiate with humanity. The once proud leaders who had deemed Earth an easy target were now struggling to accept that they had been wrong. The humans were not just surviving, they were thriving. They had pushed the invaders back at every turn, and now their forces were closing in on the remaining alien strongholds. The alien fleet that had once dominated the skies was now in disarray, their weapons malfunctioning under the pressure of human ingenuity, and their soldiers scattered and disorganized. Humanity had proven itself to be far more than just a resilient species. It had become a force of nature. As the alien forces retreated to their final stronghold, a desperate decision was made within the council. They would offer humanity a peace treaty, a desperate plea for mercy. They would beg for forgiveness and offer everything they had to end the war to avoid complete annihilation. The message was sent to Earth, a formal request for ceasefire and negotiation. Humanity was left stunned by the sudden shift in tone. The invaders who had once sought to conquer the planet were now asking for mercy. The humans had come so far, and the idea of negotiating with those who had come to destroy them was an uncomfortable thought, but they knew that peace could be the key to their survival. They called for a meeting of their leaders, military strategists, and diplomats to discuss their response. The decision was not an easy one. The humans had fought hard for every victory, and they were not about to let their guard down now, but there was also a deep understanding that this could be their chance to end the war without further bloodshed. In the halls of the human leaders, a tense atmosphere hung in the air. The diplomats argued for the potential of peace, while the military leaders were more cautious. They had seen firsthand the destruction the invaders could cause, and they were not sure they could trust a sudden shift in behavior from their enemies. The resistance fighters wanted revenge, but there were others who believed that humanity had shown enough strength to secure a peaceful future and avoid the horrors of continued conflict. As the hours passed, the debate raged on, but ultimately a decision was reached. Humanity would negotiate, but on their terms. They would not let the invaders off easily. They would demand compensation for the destruction they had caused, and they would require that the alien fleets leave Earth's orbit for good. But the message would be clear: if the invaders truly sought peace, humanity would be willing to listen, but only if the invaders accepted the terms of the humans, not the other way around. The response was sent to the council, a firm but measured declaration that humanity was open to discussion, but would not be intimidated into surrender. The humans had won their place on the galactic stage, and they were determined to keep it. The final act of the war would be decided not on the battlefield, but in a negotiation that would change the future of the galaxy forever. The alien council was left in stunned silence as they received humanity's terms. The message was clear: they had underestimated Earth in every way, and now they were at the mercy of a species they had once considered weak. But the humans had shown them that their strength came not from sheer power alone, but from their will to survive, and their ability to adapt. The invaders had no choice but to listen. As the council convened to discuss humanity's terms, the pressure mounted among the factions. Some leaders were willing to accept the peace offering in hopes of preserving their remaining forces, while others were still clinging to the hope of victory. But as the debate dragged on, it became clear that the council was divided. Their unity had fractured beyond repair, and they could no longer agree on a course of action. The humans had already made it clear that they would not accept a half-hearted surrender. They demanded the alien fleets withdraw from Earth's orbit and leave the planet entirely. They would not allow any alien race to use Earth as a pawn in their galactic games. Humanity would determine its own fate moving forward, and the invaders would have to live with the consequences of their actions. Despite the infighting among the alien factions, the decision was eventually made. The peace proposal would be accepted. The council had no choice but to concede to humanity's demands. They were exhausted and broken. The invasion had taken its toll on their forces, and they knew they could not continue to fight without risking complete destruction. The negotiations were tense, but humanity remained firm in their terms. They demanded the aliens leave Earth's atmosphere immediately, and promised that if the invaders honored the agreement, they would be allowed to leave the planet without further conflict. Humanity would not seek revenge, but they would hold the alien races accountable for their actions. Their decision to invade Earth had cost them everything, and now they would pay the price. The final agreement was signed, and the alien forces began to retreat from Earth's surface. Their ships lifted from the ground and disappeared into the vastness of space. The humans watched as the invaders left their world, no longer a conquered species, but a proud and independent force standing tall in the face of adversity. Earth had been changed forever, but not in the way the invaders had expected. The humans had proven their strength, their resilience, and their ability to rise above the odds. They had shown the galaxy that they were not to be underestimated. No longer would they be seen as a primitive species, easy for anyone to conquer. They had earned their place among the stars, and the galaxy would never forget the lesson that Earth had taught. The Council's failure to conquer Earth would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. The message was clear: never again would a species underestimate the power of humanity, and those who tried would find themselves facing an enemy unlike any they had ever encountered. The future of the galaxy had shifted, and humanity was now a force to be reckoned with. As the dust settled, the people of Earth looked toward the future with hope and determination. They had fought for their survival and emerged victorious. Now they could rebuild their world and prepare for the challenges ahead, knowing that no matter what the galaxy threw at them, they would always rise to meet it.